we're going to go ahead and jump into here. We're excited to bring you all kind of the key strategies about finding and retaining residents and give you some actionable takeaways and inspiration on how to do this. I'm going to lead off a bit of the webinar, we're going to cut to Barbara in a little bit and have her kind of tell us more about some of these marketing techniques. So the outline for today is going to talk about the rental market economic landscape, who are today's renters, how do you find and retain those renters, and then some takeaway ideas at the very end, and then we'll have some time left for Q&A. So beginning, go ahead and give everyone a background of what the Zillow Rental Network is. My name is Chris, and I manage all of the brands across the Zillow Rental Network. We have one of the largest rental networks. We are the largest, actually, rated by ComScore, of the rental networks in views and unique users. And so we allow our customers to maximize their exposure through those partnerships that we have, get the highest quality contacts, and we like to say that we're a partner in your success. Some of those brands that we have are Zillow, recently Trulia, which is where I came from, HotPads, and then we also syndicate our listings to Yahoo, HGTV, MSN, AOL, and My New Place, a lot of these brands that people are familiar with. And now I'm probably going to do a bit of more of a formal introduction. We have Barbara here. Now, Barbara, how many properties have you worked on?
Oh man, Chris, that's hard to say. We've worked on hundreds, if not, into starting the thousands of properties nationwide. Everything from your A-plus deals, your high rises, to your repositioned assets that are totally turning around their reputation and are looking for a brand new start. So really all over.
And Barbara, you are joining us from where are you located?
I'm in Texas. I'm in San Antonio.
And how many inches of rain have you had in the last?
Oh my gosh, it's been insane here. Thankfully, where I'm at, we haven't been hit so hard, but just nearby in like San Marcos, Austin, Houston, our friends there are getting bombarded. So we went from drought to flood stages in just overnight. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I saw on Facebook a friend had a 10-day forecast of thunderstorms every single day still.
Yeah, pretty much.
Texas's weather is always very interesting.
Yeah, it's very temperamental.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into here and talk about the current rental market landscape. It's probably going to be the driest content we have today, and that's why we save Barbers for last. So there are rental markets across the country are experiencing pressure from increased demand. We have seen this in increased prices. The average rental price done by the Zillow Rent Index has increased from $1,220 to $1,362 over the last 3 years. And as a percentage increase, it has increased every single year. And right now in 2015, it was about a 3.7 increase. So there is an increased demand in rentals. And we're seeing most of that demand. If you haven't seen a slide like this, then we probably haven't done a good enough job, because we've probably sent out many of these. But we see that on the coastal cities, there is a lot of pent-up demand and not enough supply, and that is increasing places like San Francisco and, of course, in the East Coast, like in Boston. There are some areas in the middle of the U.S., especially in Texas, where we are seeing an increase in rental prices. And then there are places like D.C. that have had kind of a softening this year, Chicago as well, as supply has actually been built up to demand. So why is that important here? Why is this happening? And like I said, we have a whole lot more demand than we have supply. Homeownership rates have returned to the 1990s level. So at about 65%, 64%, of those own a home right now, and every single one, percentage point here is millions of additional renters. Another stat that we often reference is how many people are actually doubling up because of rent is getting so expensive. And cities like Los Angeles, where it used to be 1.5, these are not exact numbers, I apologize, but about 1.5 adults per household, has now increased, to 1.8 to 1.9 adults per household. So a lot of people are passing on the opportunity to buy, and they're doubling up in households and renting. And it kind of gives you this tale of 2 decades, I call it, from 1995 to 2005. It was when home buying was increasing the fastest, and renting was pretty steady. But then once you hit in 2005, and of course we had the housing bubble and recession, that it completely swapped. I've never seen a such prettier graph that I probably couldn't draw a line that good. So it is a tale of 2 different decades right now.
I love seeing these stats, Chris. So what does that really mean then? I mean, all of this, who then, who's making up our communities? Who are our renters?
Great question, Barbara. And one other thing really quick, this rental vacancy rate is actually at all-time low. And who are today's renters? So we know that young adults are renting for longer. But we still see that the majority of those that are renting are still in the 45 to 54-year-old range. But we are seeing a change in a lot of these younger demographics as an increasing part of the rental category. I think from the mobility study that the U.S. Census Bureau did back in 2012 and 2013, half of all those that moved during that year were between the ages of 19 to 34, the millennials group. So as we jump to what we're going to talk about in a minute with Barbara and how to understand who your renters are, it's important to know who lives at your community and who's moving into your community. Those are going to be two different types of things that Barbara will talk about. One of the other stats we like to show is one that, fairly obvious, but from the U.S. Census Bureau, renters are making less money than average. It's a difference of almost double nationwide the amount that people are making versus whether they're renting or home buying. Here, the majority of them are between $20,000 and $80,000. So that's about 55%. And when we asked renters, why they don't own, we dropped it into these kind of three main categories. Income affordability, 53%, because I can't afford the maintenance of home ownership, I don't qualify, I don't have a down payment, I receive government assistance. And then, Barbara, you really like the second one. Why is the second one so important?
I just love seeing this because it's really a lifestyle preference. So it's to me what I call the new American dream, where before having a house was what everybody was attaining to. Now you have this really growing number that says, hey, I could afford to buy a house, but I don't want to. Maybe it's not in the location I want. And I identify because I was a homeowner myself, but now because of preference, I also am choosing to rent because I like the lifestyle that comes with it. So I love seeing that number grow.
Great. And then uncertainty. Not certain how long you're going to live. We know that renters, of course, move about every just under 2 years, where every homeowner is about 7 years. So there's certainly some uncertainty that allows renters to, encourages them to live in an apartment. So, not surprising some of these statistics, we're going to move into Barbara's content here, what everyone is waiting to hear, and why it's so much fun. But how do you find and retain today's renter? So I'm going to turn some time over to you, and I'll interrupt you for some questions that I have throughout your slides. But let's talk about it.
That sounds great, Chris. This is the stuff that I'm so passionate about, and I'm so excited to share. One of the biggest things that we see is just a misstep that communities make, because what they do is they separate their marketing and retention. We see managers, we see regionals do this all the time. They get together, they focus on marketing, and they really drill deep into, we've got to come up with a quarterly plan or a monthly plan. And then when they come up with their marketing plan, they basically take off that hat and then they put on their retention hat, and they start focusing, okay, what are we going to do to keep the residents that we have? How are we going to keep them engaged? And so they're viewing them as two separate entities. And
hey, Barbara.
Yes?
You may want to ask which one is more important here.
Okay, let's do that.
So we're going to go ahead and have our Seattle friends go ahead and launch the poll question here for us. Which is more important, marketing or retention?
And I think they're going to kind of tweak it to ask which one do you find more difficult, to find which one have you maybe struggled a little bit with, marketing or retention, because we know some of them have their different nuances.
Yep. Hi, everybody. This is Laura in Seattle. Just launched the poll. It looks like the results have trickled in, and overwhelmingly, it sounds like retention is the most difficult.
I am honestly not surprised to see that. We know that a lot of people struggle with retention. They feel that, it's one of the hardest pieces. And so then I'm really excited to share some of this information that we're going to get to. So back to the way that we were saying, a lot of people, they focus again on, they focus on them as separate pieces. But what we're talking today about is a holistic approach. The best practice that we see is when we see communities that whatever it is that they're marketing on the outside, they're really living and breathing on the inside. And so it becomes really easy because the second a prospect walks through the door, they feel this sense of community that's being marketed, but it's really being lived, and that's a type of advertising that you can't pay for.
So this is very important, kind of this full circle approach. Now, what's the first step in all of this? I mean, why, in trying to create a full circle approach of your marketing retention, what's the first step here?
Well, the first step is, and Chris, I don't know, my screen is kind of showing the slides a little bit blown up, but I'm not sure if that's on everybody's. But the biggest piece is understanding who you're talking to. So before you can even try to reach out to anybody, you have to understand who it is that you're talking to. And I think, again, one of the misconceptions is you have to talk to everyone. But you shared some really good stats. We are seeing that we have a range of renters. They have different things that are important to them. Everyone has their own buying signature. And so what our goal is to figure out these commonalities. What are the things that are important to our renters and to the prospects that we're specifically trying to attract?
So what does it take then if these are, how do you start to kind of find out and understand who this demographic is?
Well, the biggest piece is that this is the type of research that is not done behind the desk. Even if you've been at your community for years and years and years, you've got to get out and really feel the pulse of your neighborhood. And again, it's not something that you do behind the desk. This isn't something that's just for A-plus or brand new construction communities. You want to look and see what's happening in your region and how people interact within that community. And I think we have a poll question to kind of get a feel for how close people are living and working within relation to their neighborhood.
Yeah, I think someone has commented we are seeing some issues with the screen as well. So we're gonna go ahead and launch the poll, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to fix this here. So
okay. So the question is, I'll turn it over to Laura, but how close do you live to the communities that you manage? Are you guys living in the same neighborhood, in the same city, in the same planet? So really we want to know, do you live within the neighborhood? Are you living nearby? Do you really have the pulse of your community because you're a part of it? Or maybe are you, outside of the right immediate area? So we will wait for that poll to come in.
Yep, the results are trickling in. And it looks like overwhelmingly 47% live in the same city, followed by I live in the same neighborhood, and just 14% I live in the same planet.
That's good to hear. And so living in the same neighborhood, sometimes that's an advantage and sometimes that's a disadvantage. One of the things that we see with managers, and I was guilty of this myself, when we live in the same submarket, we start, seeing things exactly as we saw it, year after year, day after day. And so what happens a lot of times is that we start to miss a little bit about what exactly is happening. All right, we're back. It looks like that screen looks good.
All right.
So Chris, that piece is to research the demographic and create your avatars. The real things that you want to know is, where are people spending their free time? Where do they have lunch? Where do they have dinner? Where are they grabbing coffee? People are not just about what they're doing within their apartment. It's how are they spending their free time? getting out, you have to really drive, walk, pedal, ride. Is this a community that walks? Do they bike? Do they ride public transportation? Is it a heavy area that people drive in? And what this takes is legwork, because you need to pick different times of day. You need to go sometimes during the week, sometimes on the weekend, because it's a whole different, vibrant neighborhood. So what you're really doing is you're deconstructing the neighborhood, and you're looking into what already exists and how do people operate within this little submarket that they're a part of. And it's a very systematic approach.
So give us an example here. Drive. I love the phrase drive, walk, pedal, ride, because obviously your renters are doing all of these things in that kind of neighborhood, and doing it different times a day. I love the websites that do like the best thing to do at 6 o'clock or the best thing to do at 8 a.m. You know,
Yeah, it's awesome because what they're basically doing is they're taking a day and they're spending a day in the life of their renter. And so, I mean, it's really fantastic. So this first piece about location, what you have to think is the businesses that are in that neighborhood, they've already done a lot of the research of what type of consumers they have. So for you, you can piggyback off of that. You start to build a persona around your neighborhood. You can look at the different social media sites. So again, like shopping, wine, dine, leisure. And this is also the piece where you look at your comps and you say, hey, what are the types of people that are living at our competitors? And a great place to do this is looking at their social media sites. You can kind of get a feel for who it is that's operating within their communities. And then the last piece of the location is looking internally. A lot of times we neglect our leases and our guest cards, but if you really look at them, you can see that there's top businesses that emerge, there's trends in income and types of jobs and things like that. So you're really educating yourself on what you currently have or what potential you have with whatever is really right under your nose.
so do you suggest that a lot of your clients actually partner with these local businesses to kind of brand themselves with them or get their name out there? Because you mentioned looking at your guest cards. Is that to find where they're hearing about the property?
Well, the guest cards, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. It's where they work, it's where, it's to know about how they heard about the community, but the partnership with the businesses is huge. I mean, we know that, like attracts like, so if you can partner with other businesses that already have the loyalty of your customer, you get that loyalty by association. And so it's that cool factor because you're part of something that they're really involved in on their leisure time or part of their hobbies or where they're hanging out with friends. And now you've got this great synergy connecting. And so that's why that location piece is huge.
Right. So what about avatars here?
So what I did on this one is I wanted to show you guys an example I've shared before, but the reason I share this example is we've seen them at the early stages, this community, and we've seen them years after. And so the avatar piece is really, to me, the most critical. You find out and you start building who is it that you want your target market to be, and sometimes it's already who's in your community. So for this specific community, it's down the road from where I'm at. It's in an urban center. We started to see 3 avatars emerge. And what was really unique was that 2 of these avatars were super similar in their lifestyle preference. So if you see, for example, you see the bohemian mix at the top, the urban creator. They were, again, very similar in preferences. They were just at different stages of life. So the bohemian mix was who that urban creator was going to turn into years down the road. And the research that we do, this isn't something that we pulled from a magazine or from some data point. We went and we looked and said, where do these people work? Where do they shop? What's their career? What do they read? What do they drive? Where are places that we can target them? And by doing that, we built these avatars or these personas to give us a real picture of who it is that we're talking to. And the pictures that you notice on this slide, these are showcased in stock photography. But on the following one, we've even taken it a step further and taken pictures of real people in real life that we feel matched up to our descriptions there. And so, again, seeing them in stock photography is important, but seeing them in real life, even seeing them on the different social media sites that we talked about, now we know that these are real beings, real people, and we can start to do the next piece, which is crafting the message.
Barbara, I've always given the example of you shouldn't be looking for the right audience for your content. You should be looking for the right content for your audience. And so I feel like here you're telling everyone it doesn't matter what you're doing until you figured out who you're doing it to or who you're marketing to, right?
That is exactly right, Chris. And so many people, like you mentioned, they start with the opposite approach, but you don't need to make the one fit the other. You have to find out who it is, and then the message really does emerge. And it did for this community. I think that, we can showcase the way that their messaging came up. The message was crafted. My slide hasn't advanced from the one app personas to the message, but yeah, here we go. So I'd really like to show you how that message then came to be and how it was critical in making sense to the right audience. And this is kind of brings you into the full circle. So a stat that I love to share is how we as human beings digest imagery versus wording. And I think this is super important if you take something away. We as human beings, we digest images 60,000 times faster than we do text or words. And images, they get stored in our long-term memory, they affect our emotions, and emotions affect our decision making. So what happened here is this message started to emerge, things like naturally urban. It was in an area where there was a lot of communities that were saying they were urban, but this one really was naturally so. It didn't try too hard. It was unapologetically unique. And so we use these words and great imagery to bring to life the feel. And I think my favorite piece is that organically social. The way that it was constructed and the incredible job the staff did caused places for people to basically run into each other and forced conversations, and it forced interactions in a very organic and natural way. And so my favorite picture is part of something they used in their collateral. Right there on the right-hand side, you see a picture of what is a couple that had their wedding at the community on the rooftop deck. And so they incorporated this imagery that was real life people experiencing life at their community. And again, it's very powerful.
There's been a lot of comments lately. I think, I don't know who it was, but they released a report saying that a goldfish has a longer attention span than a human does.
Absolutely. I love that when the goldfish, 7 seconds, swims away. And so for us, that's the goal, our prospects. We as human beings have the attention span of a goldfish nowadays, and so our goal is to craft a message that makes sense so that we can catch them before that goldfish swims away. And I think one piece that you said, Chris, was about making sure the message is correct. We've seen it go south. For example, a lot of communities, I'll look at ones that are trying to appeal to baby boomers, and we've even almost gone down that road ourselves of doing messages that are like, discover yourself. And it just doesn't make sense, because when you think about that audience at that stage in life, they've already discovered themselves. And so that's why it's so critical to make sure that you do the research first so that the message makes sense and it isn't offensive, and it also, it appeals to that specific prospect.
Sometimes they're rediscovering themselves.
They might be rediscovering new things. Exactly.
So how do you use this imagery? I mean, this is kind of like those mood boards, right? How is the property kind of using these assets in a property?
So once you've crafted the message, these assets will go across all your different platforms. You're going to make sure that everything from your face-to-face outreach marketing materials to your online marketing, your social media, even how you hire is going to be based on this messaging that you've put together. And so all your touch points then become unique, but they're very much branded with the same look and feel.
All right, so now, Barbara, I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Uh-oh.
Where do you suggest people get this imagery? I mean, if they're doing this themselves, what is the best resource for them to find? Do you recommend they spend some money, or do you ask them to hire a photographer? What do you suggest?
Okay, so this is a fantastic question. Imagery is some of the best money that you're ever going to spend. So yes, take some really great photography if it means hiring a photographer to do it, but also empower your staff. This is like the age of Instagram. Everybody's like a professional photographer. Real life photos are incredible. We were at a community a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking out the window, and there's this adorable couple sitting in the pool with their swimsuits on, but like they're sitting in the little beached area of the pool having a bowl of cereal. And I just went out there and I took a picture, just to show life at the community. So had that been my property, I would have asked, hey, do you mind if we use this and showcase this? Because real life photos work really well with then stock photography that you mix together. So investing in it is the one piece, and then also being ready to capture those real life moments.
Right. So this is all kind of about your marketing and your branding of your property. What other things can you jump into that kind of is an extension of this?
Well, now what happens is we put on this is dual marketing and retention hat, and that comes up to the events that matter. And the reason I really wanted to show 1221 is because this community, they do it, they get it. They have events like, for example, these breakfast on the run. On the left side, you see this sign that says, "Wish you were here," and it's a little bit hard to tell there, but you can see it from the road. And one of the residents commented, "Just seeing that sign makes me wish that I was in town, and right there at the community." They do fun things like a stash bash, or on the right-hand side, it's hair of the downward dog for yoga on the rooftop in the garage. They know that the residents like to have fun. One event that I followed, they did a throwback Thursday where everybody dressed up like their 8th grade picture, and they shared it on social media. They did things that were giving back to charity, like a Go Pink event where they turned even the pool pink and did pink drinks and things like that. So they have the pulse of their community. And one of the things I think they do really well, they've even named their residents 1221ers. They use it in all of their interaction. And because of that, they have these events that don't feel forced. They feel very organic. And now they're having events, now that they've been open several years, that are gaining momentum. So it's almost like a cult following. People look forward to these events that they're doing each quarter because they're getting excited about it. And so it's built this great sense of community.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact, where I heard this, but it's probably been 3, 4 years ago where properties that if you have a friend, or like if you're friend with more than 7 people, you're X% more likely to rent again or to renew at the property. And this seems to be a property that's really trying to enhance that, right?
Absolutely, that organically social feel. You're not going to leave as easily a community where your friends and everything surrounding your life is. And so that's the focus of today, is saying, how do we create a community like this one where people don't want to leave because everything that they do for fun, for work, for everything is really ties back, and this is the home base of where everything happens. It's basically the backdrop to their life.
So I think you have some other examples here throughout we'll chat about, and these are really fun examples.
Yeah, I love student housing. I've always been a fan. I think that with student housing, they always do a little bit more than sometimes we do in multifamily housing. They get a little more creative. And so this is just one example, 48 West. They do things like pancakes and pajamas. We're ready for pancakes at midnight. If you're cramming for finals, this is an event that I would want to go to while I was in college. And so it's fun, and then you see how they've incorporated into their social platforms as well.
I've always wanted to do pancakes in the parking lot at like work, Friday mornings or something. That'd be like a thing. But I've never had
wear pajamas.
Yeah, oh yeah, and wear pajamas. I've never had M&Ms though on my pancakes. So and then here's something I think you've done, right? Or
yeah, this is something that we put together as an example, because one of the kind of pushbacks that I hear sometimes is, oh, our residents don't want to come down for events. And so to me, FaceTime is critical. The more rare that FaceTime is, the more valuable it is. So events where they can grab and go. I love this. This is one of our designs. We're not whole without you, doing donut holes and coffee, and it's on the run, giving your residents just a reason to come in, say hi, and if have that moment to connect. So any event where you can at least see them for just a second, have a quick conversation, it's just building that rapport. And we're seeing these grab and go events at all levels. So A communities, B communities, C communities, they're putting their own twist on them, but they're super valuable.
So these are all, food, parties, what other kind of unique things have you seen out there, or, worked with a client on?
Well, I think the next slide shows where the regions kind of play in. And you have some companies, some communities that, depending on where they're located, you're going to have to switch up your event. So this is a community in Denver. Around April, they did a Play in the Dirt event where they decorated their own planters and they planted plants. And so for Denver, this fit and it works. And it's kind of like the painting with a twist. People like events where they can, do something and walk away with a finished product. Another fun thing that we've seen in Denver, and again, I say this with, limitations based on, everybody has different insurance and requirements, but some of these communities, they even have a beer tap in their community center, and the whole thing is they partner with local breweries and invite residents, come in, bring a friend after work, have a beer in the club room. They're just promoting that FaceTime. So looking at the events and saying what would speak to our residents, and not getting discouraged if you have a miss here and there, but continuing to try to find the one that fits.
So maybe you can't answer this question. Maybe someone from our audience can, but are like gardens becoming like a trend in amenities or coming back?
I think so. I think people are loving that. And not just, your typical gardens, you have your shared community gardens, but patio gardens, even little herb gardens. We've seen communities do that where they actually have an event to put together like a little window herb garden and things like that. So it's giving people that don't maybe want to buy a house but still want a taste of that, it's giving them those options. And so events that can do that, that can fill those gaps, they really become like, why would you own when you can have all these things right here and have the benefits of renting?
Right. I think we're going to launch a poll question here about one of the next things we're going to talk about and try to create a unique brand for your property. If you want to go ahead and launch that, Seattle.
All right. So our next poll question is, if you manage a pet-friendly building, are pet-related activities part of your marketing strategy?
That's a good one. How many of you are doing pet-related activities for marketing and retention?
Wow, the results are pretty overwhelming. So about 72% of folks said yes, they are.
Interesting. So let's talk about some of those ideas. Some of the things I think we've collected on the Zillow side is renters will pay more to live with their pets. On average, pet-friendly rentals in the top 13 metros commanded 3.5% premium for those that don't allow pets. So there is money in pets.
Absolutely. And Chris, the screen did the little thing again. It's kind of showing just half. I'll jump in and talk about it, maybe if we can try to get it zoomed back out. But this was an example that was shared with CMC Apartments, and they've done they have been a fantastic example of showing how to be pet friendly, from welcoming new pets to their communities to just having different posts on Instagram. They've had some awesome things. I think the next slide shows them with one of their portable trucks where they've had actually like a possum event at their community. And it's just, again, it's finding ways to partner with businesses that already have that popularity with your residents and then bringing them to your community. So this was where they actually brought the truck with treats, and they brought that to the community, and then you can see that the little pets there, the pictures. There we go.
We're good?
We're good. So check out CMC Apartments. Check them out on Facebook and also on Instagram. You'll get some really good ideas of how they're taking pet friendly to a whole nother level. There's a management company that I didn't include in the slides, but I want to shout out to them, WC Smith. They have 2 M Street, and they have Emmy. I think it's a little bulldog, adorable. She has her own Instagram. She posts, even before the community was built, Emmy would post pictures, and she just became a real living, breathing mascot. And they're not the only 2. We see people doing this in so many different ways. Getting creative with how to market pet friendly is huge. There was a community here in San Antonio that they had a ton of bulldogs, and all the staff that had bulldogs and the residents that had bulldogs took a professional picture with themselves and the dogs, and they said, no bull about it, we have the best community or the best apartments in San Antonio. And so I thought incorporating the staff into that was huge. And then I think this is great too. Just we see a lot of value adds happening when you're thinking about what spaces to refurbish or what amenities to bring to life. Having things that speak to the pet owners. So things like being able to wash your dog and have a little boarding center for your dog within a community is huge. So looking for areas, maybe if you don't have a space now, that you could turn into a pet-friendly zone.
Do you have any pets yourself, Barbara?
I do. I have a cat right now, but I've for years and years had a 120-pound Doberman, and
Oh,
so he was my baby. He passed away, but soon I will be getting another big baby.
that is a heavy dog. I was not expecting that answer at all.
That was a child. He was more like my child.
I probably shouldn't say, but it's going to embarrass me. I had about a 3 pound Yorkie.
I love it.
Completely off.
Well,
You guys,
that's
you can
funny.
see my screen okay, right?
Yeah, it looks good. All right, so this next example, again, student housing shout out. This is Ringo, the retreat. Ringo was a solution to a problem for marketing. What they found was that the campus wouldn't let them go on-site marketing, this particular campus. So the manager had a dog named Ringo who was so stinking adorable. They would put a retreat t-shirt on him, they would take him out marketing, and you know what it is? I don't know about dogs, people gravitate to them. And so he became their living mascot. I shared him years ago, but he's still one of my favorites. And he's not the only one. Walking into a luxury downtown community in an urban area the other day, I'm instantly greeted by a dog. And, you know, of course, I'm an animal lover. I reached down to pet the dog. And the manager's like, actually, he's one of our residents' dogs, but sometimes when he has to run out, he sits here with us and he greets everybody. She goes, he's leased more apartments than we have. So get creative with your strategies.
That's funny. And so I think that something on our side. I actually failed to mention we have a hashtag here. Zillow's been doing this, I guess, a sweepstakes or a campaign for the last couple of weeks called the Multifamily Housing Trendsetter, which is trying to kind of showcase what you're talking about here, Barbara. Those that kind of go beyond and make the community by through the people that live there, through the people that manage it.
I
Uh,
love this. This is awesome because so much of it is putting faces to the names of our communities. And so I think this is awesome how through this MFH Trendsetter, you guys have really are showcasing this. So how can people get involved?
well, what I did want to mention, I've always wanted to do a carnival. Like someday I will run my own carnival. Doing these guys done a caricaturist, cotton candy, balloon toss, and more, having a lot of fun. If you'd like to get involved, there's actually, the best. I don't know. Laura's going to help me if this is random or if we select kind of like the top option. But if you use the hashtag on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, MFH Trendsetter, you enter to win a chance to win $500, and you can enter every week. So Laura, is this random or does the best one win?
It is random, and yes, you can enter every week for a chance to win.
That makes it even easier. And if you follow, the Z Rental Network on Twitter and Instagram, you can see who wins. So we want to encourage everyone to tell your on-site team about this. If you check out, our Twitter or Facebook account right now, you can learn more information and forward um, the contest onto them as well. So let's talk about some of the takeaway ideas from this great webinar before we get to questions. So kind of set up number one. Go ahead, Barbara. Kind of give us the lowdown, the quick 3.0. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but tell us in a summary here what we should remember from this webinar.
Okay, so these are your 4 bullet items that you want to, first of all, hit the streets. You have permission. Go out there, grab a bite to eat, do some serious research, figure out how to reach and retain your residents by understanding who they are and what they do. So we talked about it, Chris. This is a perfect excuse for you to go visit your local coffee shops, go out to different dinner, kind of get to see what's going on, but with the whole goal of figuring out who's making up your community. And then the second piece is finding your hook. I see so many communities that they get so bogged down in making things bigger, better, bigger, better. What I want to say is find 1 or 2 things that are different about you. It could be you, it could be your staff, it could be one small thing inside of your community, and build a whole campaign around it. Pull at the heartstrings by focusing on that emotional marketing. And then simplify your message. Remember, like you said about the goldfish, people don't have time. We're all so stinking busy. So craft a message that's important to your resident and then look at it and keep drilling down until that message is as simple as you can make it. And then finally, host an open house, whether you do it as a one-time thing or you do it over, different time periods. Invite your prospects to come in while you're having resident events. Let them live the life vicariously through your current residents. I guarantee you're going to lease more apartments doing it that way. As human beings, we want to see other people experiencing something. It gives us that feeling of safety, and we don't have to have that buyer beware syndrome because others are living there and enjoying it. And so it's a great way to make marketing and retention part of under one umbrella.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and put up the last slide here, our contact information, as we start to answer some questions. I've seen some come in, and I've loved the comments about retention that people have provided. But if you'd like to contact us or have other questions besides here today at the webinar, feel free to do so. So let's go ahead, and Laura, if you have some of the questions ready for us, we'll go ahead and start answering some of them.
Yeah, we've got several questions that have come in. Barbara, one comment I think that you'll like, just yay for Dobermans.
Yay!
So first question for you guys. So when you talk about building out avatars or personas for your building, is there a limit to how many you should create or define?
I think that's a really good question. One of the things to think about that is you don't want to spread out too much. The whole thing is you want to create a few messages and get a few different target markets that have commonalities. To me, once you start getting beyond the 4 or 5 mark, your message gets really diluted. So what we're looking for is really groups of people that have common interests and then putting them under a certain avatar, so to speak. And then recognizing that you're going to have different percentages. You might have one avatar that dominates. It's maybe 50 to 60% of your community. And so your messaging is going to be really strong towards them, but you're not going to forget the other 2 avatars. So my recommendation is between the 2 and 4 marker. You probably don't want to go much more than that.
Great. Let's see, one more question for you guys here. If you have a very, very small budget for marketing, what are some creative marketing ideas that you can use to retain residents with very little spend?
This one is good because you can be good at marketing and retention if you have a lot of money. To me, where the real key lies is if you don't have a lot of money. How do you get creative? And so one of the things we did at Sprout recently is we put together a whole packet of ideas for free on renewal. How do you keep renewals fun? And my idea with retention is snap people out of the day-to-day reality. Things are mundane. People are stressed. People have so much on their plate nowadays. So doing small things like leaving a little balloon for them on their door, or some goodies, or something, again, small, getting together with your team and saying, how do we celebrate our residents' life successes? If you know that somebody's graduating or they have a child that's, starting their first day of school, doing something really small for them, even a little note or a little small delivery. Don't be afraid of reaching out to one resident at a time. Those connections, they're powerful. And when you do, and again, it doesn't really take money. It takes thought, it takes effort, and it takes empathy. Those are the things people remember for the long haul. So really, that's where you can stand out as different.
I was going to add to that, Barbara. There's a lot of people with lots of money in marketing that still do a really poor job.
Absolutely. I think they do a worse job than some of the really creative ones because they just throw money to see what sticks. And I feel those with us with a limited budget, we really have to measure and say, did this work? And then, keep tweaking because we don't have limitless resources.
I really like the communities that they know the residents' pets' names, they know their children's names, they're asking them how they're doing, they always have a treat when they're walking around if they see you and your pet, going for a walk. So there's a lot of little things you can do that are empathy and personal that really add to this what you're trying to message here.
You're so right, Chris. I give the example. There's a bank that would always give Bruno treats, and it was not near me where I lived. But if I had Bruno in the car, I would drive to that bank specifically, back when you had to deposit checks at the bank, and I would go there specifically because the teller would always send a treat down the chute, and it made a difference. It wasn't anything super expensive, but it made a difference, and it kept me loyal. So it's the little things that add up.
That's nice. That's nice. Laura, any other questions we want to address now?
No, I think that about wraps it up.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for attending. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Barbara. If I ever start a car business, I will name my first car Savona.
All right.
Uh,
And I was gonna say, Chris, just for the email, if anybody has any questions, it's Watch Your Business Sprout, but it has 3 S's. So it's Barbara at watchyourbusinesssprout.com. And for anybody that maybe is stumped or needs some ideas, that would be the best way to reach out to us.
Apologize on that. Yes, there's 3 S's.
No big deal. It was fun, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Zillow. Bye.